It was built to make species feel small, the ceiling arched like the inside of a frozen ocean, and banners of 100-star empires hung in perfect rows, without a single ripple in the air. At the center stood a circular platform of black stone, and upon it waited a single chair. The human delegate sat in that chair. Ambassador Elias Ward leaned back as if he were in a roadside diner instead of the grand assembly of the Galactic Empire. His suit was dark and plain, with no medals and no glowing implants, just cloth and skin, and calm brown eyes. Across from him towered the Imperator. Galactic Empire had ruled for 12,000 years, and its fleets stripped suns for fuel, while its armies pacified spiral arms, and its word was law across half the known sky. Today it had declared war on Earth. Imperator's voice rolled through the chamber like grinding stone. Humanity has violated imperial decree. Your expansion into the Perseus frontier was forbidden. Your mining colonies stand on sovereign space. You will withdraw, or you will be erased. Every translation node echoed the same threat in 100 languages, and every delegate felt the weight of it. Ilias did not answer. At once he reached into his pocket and drew out a small silver case. A murmur spread through the chamber. No one interrupted the Imperator. No one treated a declaration of extermination as background noise. Elias opened the case and tapped a cigarette into his hands. Security drones shifted in the air, and Imperial guards tightened their grip on shock spears. He placed the cigarette between his lips and struck a match against the stone edge of the platform. The flame flared bright orange and impossibly fragile in that vast, sterile hall. He lit the cigarette and took a slow breaths. Then he shrugged. A thin ribbon of smoke curled upward toward the frozen ceilings. Silence that followed was sharper than any weapon. You misunderstand, Elias said at last, his voice even and unhurried. We are not here to ask permission. Imperator's molten gold gaze narrowed. You are a minor civilization. It replied. You have existed in interstellar terms for a moment. You possess no allies of consequence. You will be crushed. Elias exhaled smoke and watched it drift. You already tried. He seed a flicker passed through the chamber, and holographic projections burst into view above the platform. Images of battle filled the air. Imperial cruisers emerging from hyperspace above a small blue world. Weapons charging and targeting arrays locking. Then human ships rising from the dark side of the moon, not sleek, not ornate, built like tools with thick hulls and rail cannons glowing with contained fury. The first exchange had lasted 12 seconds. Imperial ships split open under kinetic strikes, moving at a fraction of light speed. Boarding pods launched from human frigates, and marines in matte black armor tore through corridors with brutal precision. Projection shifted to a second engagement near Mars, and then a third at the edge of the system. Each time the Empire had come in force, and each time it had lost skirmishes. The Imperator said, border misunderstandings. You sent 3 war groups. Ilias replied, that was not a misunderstanding. That was a test. He leaned forward, and the lazy posture was GNU expected us to panic. You expected us to beg. You expected us to fold under the weight of your history. He took another slow breath. We did not. The projection changed again. Human shipyards orbiting Earth, vast rings of metal turning in silent labor. Asteroid mines feeding assembly lines that never slept. Factories on lunar forging armor plate by the kilometer. Children in classrooms studying orbital mechanics instead of ancient myths. See a young species. Elias said, you think that means we are fragile. What it means is that we adapt fast. He stood from the chair, and every eye followed him. You have ruled for 12,000 years, he continued. You built your empire on species that feared you, on civilizations that bowed. When you raised your fleets, he dropped the cigarette to the stone and crushed it under his shoe. We grew up afraid of ourselves, eh? Ripple moved through the observers. For most of our history, Elias said, we fought each other, we divided our world with lines and flags, we built weapons that could burn our own skies. We came close to ending ourselves more than once. His voice remained calm, and that calm carried more weight than anger. We survived, that we learned slowly, painfully, but we learned when we found out we were not alone. We did not cheer. We prepared for war, the Imperator said. We prepared for you, Ilias answered. A new image filled the chamber, a map of nearby sectors, imperial territory marked in crimson and human territory in blue. Between them lay the Perseus frontier, rich in resources and strategically vital. Lines began to appear across the map, thin at first, then thicker, forming a web of routes and nodes, hidden ship caches, listening posts, buried in comets, automated defense platforms, disguised as debris, supply chains running through uncharted micro jumps. You thought we expanded blindly, Elias said. We did not. Every colony in that frontier is bait. Energy rippled through the chamber as delegates processed the implications. The voice dropped lower. Explain. We knew you would respond to growth with force. Elias said. Empires always do so. We built our frontier to bleed youth. Projection zoomed in on Imperial fleet movements. Each incursion traced each loss, marked with cold precision. Rely on intimidation, Elias continued on. Overwhelming power. You arrive with spectacle and expect surrender before the first shot. He shook his head once. That does not work on a species that has already faced extinction at its own hands. The claws dug into the arm of its throne. You are outnumbered, it said, outgunned. Your industry is a fraction of ours for now, Elias replied. Image changed to human production curves, climbing sharp and relentless. Civilian industries converting to military output in weeks. Artificial intelligence optimizing logistics beyond organic limits. Terraforming ships refitted as carriers. We do not need 12,000 years. Elias said. We need 20. The chamber fell still. You declared war, he went on. You expected a frightened delegation. Instead, you got me. He gestured around the vast hall. This is not a negotiation, is a courtesy. The Imperator rose to its full height, and shadows shifted across the banners. You Darius. Elias said simply, you can continue this war. He said, you can pour fleets into the frontier, you can scorch our colonies, and you might even reach Earth, but every ship you lose to us is a ship you do not have when your other rivals test your borders. Every legion you send is a legion not guarding your core worlds. You are large and powerful, but you are not alone in the dark. Data flared across the chamber, showing other empires watching, measuring, calculating. You rule by fear, Ilias said softly. We fight by necessity. That difference matters. The Imperator studied him in silence. You would risk annihilation, it said. No, Elias replied. We would risk survival. Live. You destroy us, you will do it at a cost so high that your empire fractures under the strain. Your vassals will see weakness. Your rivals will see will win the battle and lose your throne. The golden light of the Imperator's gaze dimmed slightly. And if we withdraw it, asked, then you keep your throne. Elias said. You keep your fleets. You declare the Perseus frontier a buffer zone and call it wisdom. We will keep expanding, not into your core, not yet. There is enough galaxy for both of us. The hall seemed to breathe again. You threaten us with our own caution, the Imperator said. I am offering you a choice, Elias replied. Silence stretched long and cold. In orbit above the Concord world, hidden in the glare of its Star 3 human stealth cruisers, waited with drives cold and weapons ready. The Imperator knew this, and its probability engines whispered of unacceptable losses. Last it spoke, the Empire will suspend offensive operations in the Perseus frontier. Joint Commission will define new boundary. Shock rippled through the observers. Is not surrender the Imperator at a die? No, Elias said it is strategy, of course, Elias replied. Tension eased, but did not vanish. Leah stern to leave ambassador, the Imperator called he. Paused you, lit a fire in the heart of our assembly, the Imperator said while us looked back over his shoulder. Because you needed to see that we were not afraid of the smoke. He walked off the platform without waiting for dismissal. Behind him the banners of ancient empires hung heavy and still, and for the first time in 12,000 years the Galactic Empire had met a species that did not bow. Asterisk.